evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good day and welcome to the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Bob Ramsey. A little bit more about Bob. Bob is a leadership development speaker. He's also a consultant and a coach. And he's an expert on the Kohler effect. You probably didn't know, but Bob is also an author of note. We had a lovely session together discussing so many concepts. It was such a vibrant session, and I always refer to him as such an insightful leader because whenever we engage, I just learn new things. So I just want to say thank you to Bob Ramsey for taking the time to come and edify the Meticulous Moments podcast audience. I want to share something that Bob taught me, a rhyme that will stick with me forever. He said, "Love many, trust a few. Always make sure you row your own canoe." What wonderful words of wisdom. I absolutely love that. To the audience, enjoy the session with us. And to Bob Ramsey, thank you so much and welcome to this lovely session. We appreciate you. Good evening, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another vibrant session on the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And this evening, we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Bob Ramsey. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Juanita. It's so fun to be here.
Absolutely. We had such a joyous virtual coffee. I was so happy and uplifted after our call yesterday. And I just want to say, we've talked a little bit on LinkedIn. We've been in some Zooms together previously, and I know you a little bit, but would you just introduce yourself to the audience as well, please?
Okay. My name is Bob Ramsey, and I'm in the business of speaking, coaching, and training from here in St. Louis, Missouri, which is the middle of the country. And I'm in the business with my middle son, Daniel, and he's way out on the west coast of Canada.
That is absolutely phenomenal. Let me tell you, audience, Bob is a salted public speaker. I've seen him present before, and I was thinking about, who I can invite onto the show that would bring a lot of value. And his name popped up, and I'm so glad to have him here now. We had quite a chuckle yesterday when you explained to me that you live right in the middle of the USA, like literally in the middle. Will you tell the audience how in the middle you live there?
Well, of course, the geographical center of the United States is not too far from here. It's like 30 some miles west of me. Yeah. And the population center of the United States keeps moving west for the last 200 years, I think. And not too long ago, the population center and the geographical center were very near each other. That was kind of funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
That's how the middle of the country I really am, right?
Absolutely phenomenal. I was so excited to hear that. And, we talked about your leadership journey. We talked about your heart-centered leadership, that you're a servant leader. How did this wonderful leadership journey start?
Well, a long, long time ago in a land far, far away, I got started as a leader. And I'd like to tell you that story because I am the oldest son of 4 boys. I have 3 younger brothers. And my mom and dad put me in charge one day of taking care of my brothers and asking them, me to be a leader about leveling a pile of dirt that was outside our house. The dirt was delivered. My mom signed for the dirt, and then she went off to work and leaving me in charge of Tom, Dan, and John. What could go wrong? Well, I started to tell them what to do, and nothing got done. And I got a little more forceful, and I said, "Okay, boys, we got to get this done," and nothing happened. And then I decided that I was really going to have to take charge of this situation. But my brother Dan had put a lot of little cars on this pile, this dirt pile. He'd made roads and bridges. And when I reached down to take those cars off of there, he was making roads with a garden hoe, and he whacked my hand with a garden hoe. And I looked down into that big hole, and it filled up with white stuff, and it filled up with red stuff. And I ran to the house, and I called my mom. I said, Mom, Dan hacked me with a hoe. She said, "What did you do to him?" And that's how my leadership started.
I love that.
But by being whacked with a hoe by my little brother when I was trying to boss them around too much. And I found out then you just can't boss people around and order them what to do and expect to get results.
Wow.
And so I've been on a journey ever since then of trying to find ways to help people work hard, get the job done, but be happy about it.
Absolutely phenomenal, and something that we need so desperately in the workplace. I love that. Wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You know, Juanita, I guess we all know, we've all heard that most employees don't really want to be on the job. They go to work just because they either need the money or somebody in their family is making them go to work, and they feel stuck and they don't feel like they really want to be there. That's really not for them. And it's kind of sad because everywhere in our society, we need those people to be on the job. We need them to do the work they're doing, but they feel unmotivated and unhappy doing that. That's most people, over 60%.
Yeah. I believe you. Yeah. So what is the margin? Is it over 60% that people give feedback that the research shows?
Yeah, Gallup takes a poll every year, and it fluctuates from year to year, sometimes as low as 60, sometimes as high as 80% of people are what they call actively disengaged on their job. And all you have to do is go to where people work and observe them, and you'll see that most people don't really want to be there. And it's all levels too, Juanita. It's from the highest level, presidents and vice presidents, all the way down to the people who are actually doing the work. People, 80% of people don't want to be on the job. They would rather be doing something else. People play the lottery, even though it ruins their life if they win. They play the lottery in hopes that somehow that will be a ticket for them not to have to go to work. Everybody dreams about that. But in fact, people feel more valuable when they contribute, when they do a job and they feel good about it. They just don't know how. Leaders don't know how to make that happen. That's the problem. So, absolutely true.
Yeah. Now, I love that. And I was thinking it's sad, Bob. Up to 80% of people, can you imagine on a Monday morning waking up and saying, I have that 8 a.m. meeting, or I don't feel like doing this week. That ciphers through to all other areas of our life. So the work that you do is absolutely detrimental. It's vital that we get these I think, issues out there, that we talk about them, and that they are resolved.
Yes. Juanita, think about this. Think about the emotions that we experience on a Sunday night if we have to go to work Monday morning and we hate it. We hate it. Versus the emotions you feel when you're getting ready to go on a week's holiday or week's vacation, how excited you are about that.
Yeah.
It's for most people, it's a huge difference. It's a way opposite.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you are one of the change agents. And that brings me to the next question. And I love what you do. Absolutely. I think it's really, you've identified that problem in society, that gap, pushing in some knowledge there, making an awareness. And you are a salted public speaker. I mean, you are a great speaker. I've heard you present before. And you enthusiastically build up new leaders in the workplace. You work with the leaders that are there. Tell us how this journey started. How did this passion for this topic develop?
Well, I was working selling financial services one year about 15 years ago, and I wasn't doing very well. It was one of those recessions where people aren't doing well, and I was praying for an answer, and the phone rang, and it was a friend of mine calling from Texas. And he said, "Bob, how would you like to come to Texas and be a corporate trainer?" And I thought, well, I've taught some things before. Maybe I'll give that a try. And so I actually moved from the middle of the country down to Texas.
Yeah.
And I started doing corporate training. And when I started doing that, Juanita, I really noticed this problem. And and when I went out to the field and talked to the field managers, every one of them had a problem with employee motivation, every one of them. And it's usually most of their team. And so that's when I started to really learn about different management and leadership techniques that they could, because I was trying to help these leaders. I was trying to help them. Because leaders, I'll tell you, Juanita, the leaders across the United States anyway, are struggling. They're struggling for ways to get the most out of their people and help their people succeed, and they don't feel like they've got what it takes. Most of them.
Absolutely. So,
that's how I got started, and I started reading and studying and researching, and that's when I went into business with my middle son. Several years after that, and that's when we started researching the Kohler effect. And so the Kohler effect now is kind of our signature way of helping leaders motivate and give meaning to their workers.
Beautiful. Beautiful work. And, we're going to get also to that, because I want you to absolutely articulate it the way you did yesterday on the video call. So I'm going to ask you about the Kohler's cone. You also mentioned yesterday your book. I believe the title is Push Leadership More. Will you tell the audience about your book?
Okay. The name of the book
is Leadership Push. Oh, there we go. Something like that.
It's the Leadership Push. It's on Amazon and in several bookstores. And it's we wrote this book to give the research behind the Kohler effect. That's Kohler effect, Kohler, and it's not the plumbing guy. That was a different Kohler, probably the cousin to Otto Kohler.
Okay,
Otto Kohler really was an industrial psychologist in Germany at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay. And I think his cousin started the plumbing business, and so it's different. Same word, but different guys. But the Kohler effect then is a method where you can talk to people and take action with people and make them feel more important, make them feel meaningful, and make them motivated in the process. And that's the key. That's the key.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, everywhere I go, I do a lot of speaking and coaching, and everywhere I go, leaders are needing something just like this. They need this. They need this. Yeah, and what's happens really, Juanita, is that leaders are so busy. They have so much on their plate. They unintentionally neglect their people. And when the people are neglected, they feel neglected. And when they feel neglected, that's even more of a demotivator for people. So one thing that I recommend to all leaders is to take action in scheduling time for your people. Even if it's just once every 2 or 3 months, it makes a big difference.
Yes,
some leaders do it once a month, which is great, or every 2 weeks, which is great. But you've got to spend time with your people so that you could find ways to help them. And here's another thing, Juanita.
Yeah.
You have to decide to care about your people. There are lots of leaders who think their people are a ends to a mean.
Yes.
In other words, they think of their people just as a machine in the cog of the big machine to get results, to make profits, to make sales. And they treat their people just like they treat their trucks or cars or lathes or whatever their equipment.
Yeah.
And you can't treat people that way. The people are not machines.
Yes.
And so, one of the first steps is I have to talk to leaders and say, what do you think about your people? How are you treating your people? How are you believing about your people? Because that's a big, important first step. Because if you don't believe in your people, if you don't decide that people are important, it's going to be hard for the people to feel like you think they're important.
Absolutely. And I've seen this whole shift in the corporate world, Bob. There was a huge focus on the hard skills forever and ever. It was hard skills. And then the soft skills were kind of like put to the side because it's always about the task. It's always about the goal. And I was actually in a corporate setting where, because I'm a pastor, someone said to me, stop focusing on your soft skills and, just go with the hard skills. It's about the goal. It's about the vision. It's about attaining that project. And later in that year, in a conversation, it actually came to be known that soft skills now, especially after COVID, are actually now power skills. And I could only chuckle, under my breath. I could only chuckle because I'd known this all along.
Yes. Well, think about how we hire doctors. We hire doctors because of their doctoring skills. We hire engineers because of their engineer skills. Yeah. We hire software people because of their software skills, and we don't hire people usually because of their people skills. Yeah. But their soft skills, their people skills are incredibly important in doctoring and engineering and lawyering and software building, right? Absolutely. So because we don't go to school for that, because it doesn't show up on our resume, because people ignore it if we did put it on our resume, and we don't hire for that, it becomes less valuable in the workplace. Yes. Just because it's de-emphasized.
Yes.
So consequently, we have 80% disengagement. We have people that get physically ill on Sunday night. They go to the bathroom and they get physically ill thinking about going to work the next day.
Yes, that's
that's the challenge that we leaders have. And that's a challenge that we need to address and focus on, really.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And the Kohler's cone, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the Kohler's cone, I've never heard of it before yesterday. I found it to be a phenomenal concept. And I summarized the 4 points, the 4 areas that you mentioned, but I'm going to list them for the audience, for those who are not familiar with them. And then I want you articulated that so well to, just convey that to the audience. So the first, number 1 was that employees are part of the group, but they had no important job. So that's to the bottom.
That's right. Yeah.
Then the second one was high importance job, but not included in the inner cone. So that would be top right. Then halfway up and halfway in would be left to the bottom, or maybe halfway. That were with the employees that were in, but they're not in, but they're out, but they're not out. And number 4 would be what we want to facilitate and what you're working towards to facilitate, where the job is very important, plus they have the skill. So I give over to you. Please explain that wonderful concept to us.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
When Otto Kohler did his research, he did it with athletes. And throughout the 20th century, they did a lot of research with athletes, partly because you can measure a lot of athletics down to the 100th of a second. And you can put team members together and change the team members around pretty readily. And so there was a lot of research done with sports, athletics. Yeah. But only when Bob and Dan Ramsey got a hold of this idea of the Kohler effect, then we started applying it to business leadership. And we knew if we did that, we would have to give leaders a quick and easy tool to use to apply it in the workplace. Yeah. So what we did is we made a Kohler's cone. And if you can imagine a cone where it's got a round circle and a pointed top, like a witch's hat. That's what we always used to call it. Yeah. This is actually 2 scales. There's a vertical scale, the height of the cone. Let's put the cone with the tip up, and then the circle at the bottom. And so that's a different scale. So the scale at the up and down, the vertical scale, is how important people feel their job is. So there are so many people that feel like their job doesn't matter. It might actually matter, but if they feel like it doesn't matter, they're at the bottom. Then the people at the top of the scale, they feel like their job is incredibly important. They're indispensable. They might not be indispensable, but they feel like they're indispensable. That's the key. The other scale is the circle at the bottom, which we call the social circle. And by the way, this is all on our book, page 70, I think. Yeah. But anyway, it's in there. I'm just kind of giving you the audio version here right now. But so we all have felt on the inner circle of things, and we've all felt like outsiders.
Yes, absolutely.
We've all gone to groups, maybe holidays with your family. You feel in the inner circle, but holidays with your in-laws, you feel like you're the outside, right? Yes. Or maybe you're in a networking group and you feel maybe on the inner circle, or maybe you feel outside, or a social group, or a work team. You can feel like, and here's the thing. It's very easy to feel like an outsider if you're a beginner, or if you're quieter, or if you're more of an introvert, or if you're uncomfortable, or you have a low self-esteem, or you don't have a lot of job skills. There's all kinds of ways for you to feel on the outside. And sometimes leaders think their people are in the inner circle because the leader thinks they're there, but they feel like they're outside. So that's the key, how they feel. Yeah. So what we did, we made this cone. And you can put people on the cone anywhere. The closer they feel to the inner circle, the more to the center of the cone they feel. And the higher they feel like their job is important, the higher they feel. The higher on this cone they go. So in fact, what we want everybody to do, if you're a good person, if you care about people, if you want people to succeed, because some people don't. Some people want themselves to succeed and other people to fail. And this message isn't for you. Okay? Yes. This is a message for if you want to help other people succeed. Yeah. You want to help them feel more important, and you want to bring them in this inner circle. All right? So we made this, like you just described, we made this cone where we put people on it. Yes. And I'm going to tell you a guy named Brian. A guy I know named Brian, and he started a company. he founded the company 20 years ago, and he had the skills to start a company. And it just so happened that the company, the people he hired, were smarter than him, and the company grew up around him. And Brian got distracted by some health problems of his wife and family, and he didn't improve his skills, and the whole company grew up around him. And he actually now sits on the board, but they don't ask him any questions. He has he's on the C-suite, but they don't include him in any decisions.
Yes.
Because he doesn't feel like his job's important. He's in the inner circle. He goes to the company picnics. They write him up in the newsletter, but he doesn't have an important job. So anyway, here, let's just take another person. Let's take a person that's way high on the task triangle, but they're way outside the circle. And I find a lot of remote workers out there. I find a lot of salespeople that are on the road out there. They know they bring in the revenue. They know they're important, but they also know that they're not part of the group. They don't get invited to casual Fridays. They don't get invited to the after hours things because they're out 100 miles away calling on somebody. And so they feel outside the circle.
Yes.
So these people, the inner circle down at the bottom and high on the task triangle, way out to the outside the circle, are vulnerable people. They're vulnerable to being demotivated, to feel like their life has no meaning, their job has no meaning, and they can be hired off by the competition. You see, so that's the danger zone right there. Now, halfway up and halfway in, we put people on the edge, like halfway up on the cone, and that's where most people are. Most people don't really feel like on the inner circle, but they kind of belong here.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like their job is incredibly important, but they can see where they are needed, I guess. Yeah. And so that they're semi-motivated. They come to work, but they don't do great things. They're not creative. They're not innovative. Yeah. They're not trying to do more. They're just kind of putting in their time here. But if people feel like this person, way up at the top, the inner circle, an extremely important job. My job is incredibly important, and I feel a close bond to the people I'm with.
Yeah.
Nursing mothers are incredibly important to their baby.
Yeah.
And they are about as close physically as you can get.
Wow. Yes. I mean,
and how do you make your people feel like they are indispensable? How do you make your people feel like they are part of the inner circle? I went out to coffee yesterday with an 82-year-old man, and he's long since retired. And I met him, and we struck up a conversation. So I invited him to want to go to coffee, and he said he doesn't drive. I'd have to come pick him up. I said, I'll do that. And I went by and I picked him up, and we went to a coffee shop. We started talking a little bit, and he said, Bob, I'm 82, I'm retired, but I just feel like I want to do something. I want to be valuable. And we started having a conversation about some things that he could do, even though he doesn't see well, even though he doesn't drive. He can think. He thinks well. He's a great thinker. He can converse with people. He can write. And we were talking about making a list of things that he could do to be valuable in his community. And Juanita, I got to tell you something. This 82-year-old man lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
And all the way back to his house, he kept thanking me and thanking me. He was bragging to me about what an optimistic guy I was and how, and all I did is apply the Kohler effect to him. That's all I did.
Beautiful.
And you can do that. You can do that with any employee. Anybody.
Absolutely. And that is the essence of leadership, Bob. Someone would have said in their minds, oh no, this man he's too old. He's had his chance. It's over now. He must just go retire and sit down. And I agree with you completely. It's never, ever over. There's always something to give, always something to do. And I commend you on giving him hope and making him happy, because that is the purpose of life, isn't it? To be happy at what we do.
Juanita, that man, his name is Ted. Ted is going to go out this year, if he lives long enough, and he's going to do something to make the world a better place. Because somebody came by and said, I believe in you, Ted. I believe that you have, and let's talk about what ways you can be important. What can you do to be more valuable? I do some work with people that work for the professional sports teams here in town.
Oh.
And when you check people in to the stadium, there's a process you go through. You have to go through a line, get your purses checked, and go through a metal scanner and everything. And if they have 25,000 people go into the stadium, then they've got to bring in 25,000 people in a short amount of time.
Yes.
And so they have people at the gates that work there just to bring in people.
No.
And they have a tendency to think that they are not the ushers that are out in the thing. They're not the baseball players. They're not the upper management. They're not head of security. There's other people there that are more important, and other people there with different uniforms than they have. And so it's very easy for them to feel like their job isn't very important.
Yes.
And when they don't feel like their job is important, Juanita, they have a tendency to cut corners. Okay. And you can't, sometimes you should not cut corners. Usually you should not cut corners.
Yes.
When people feel like their job is not important, they feel like cutting corners. And what we need to do is we need to remind them that your job is important. Your job is important.
Everyone is important. I've made a point of this in my life, and I do the following, because I've been at the biggest events at wonderful places with rubbing shoulders with the highest CEOs. I've also had Bible study groups with the people that are not even considered, by society as being important. And I had lovely times with them in humble homes, absolutely, edifying times. And what I do is when I go to the mall close to my house, I go to the cleaning staff, because you see them with the buckets and the mops. And they know me by now, and I stop by them just as I would say hi to the CEO of the biggest shop there. I go to them and I say to the lady or the man, I say, thank you so much for cleaning these floors so beautifully. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't want to shop here, and it would take me time, and it would cost me more fuel to drive to the other side of town, stand in a longer queue. But now you make it possible for me to shop here. And you will know. They smile, it's like they just relax their shoulders a bit, and it's like something just clicks inside of them to say, well, what they are doing does have value. And that's why I was so excited when I heard what you are doing with people and with leaders and companies, because we need more of that, Bob. We need people to realize, even if they have a small part in a team, they are important. Even if they are the people that go pick up the coffee for the designing team to stay awake tonight, that's also important. Yes.
What you did, we call appreciative praise. And what you did, I always recommend to people to do what you just heard. What you did is relate the cause and effect of what that person's doing. You said, you're cleaning up this mess here. You're cleaning up these floors. And when you do that, people like shoppers like me feel more safe. We feel more comfortable. We have a lower blood pressure. We have to drive less distance to the other shopping place. And so
Yes.
what you're doing matters here. It's more than a thank you, what you did. It's more than a thank you. You're relating the activity that they're doing. The activity that they're doing makes a difference. That's what you did. And we call that appreciative praise. And I want to recommend everybody that's listening to here,
Yes.
practice that. Because everybody, the hundreds of coaches that I've talked to about appreciative praise, they don't quite get it the first time. They think it's an attaboy. Good job. You're a good worker. Good, keep going. And that's okay, but it's really not enough. The best thing to do is what you did, Juanita, and that's thank you for doing this job, because when you do this like that, it has this result. And I'm going to tell you about the results. I'm not going to tell you what you did and how good it was. I want you to tell you what the result you did. And because a lot of people can't tell the results from what they did. I got a story about that, if you don't mind me telling. So I was working with a Spectrum brand. They're a company in St. Louis, and they're all over the world. It's a big manufacturing marketing company. They make consumer goods. And I was talking to this one guy, and he was an upper leader, and he was saying that his research team, his market research team, they were kind of not too excited about their job, and they weren't really doing much, and they were coming in late, and they were just really weren't working to their full potential. And he was trying to do everything he could. He was trying to. He had got happy hours for them, and he did all kinds of gifts for them, and it just nothing seemed to work. And I said, "Have you thought about finding a way that inside your company somewhere, there's probably customer service people, and somehow find a way for your market research people to talk to the people that actually talk to the customers, because the research people have no contact with any internal or external customers." And the guy said to me, "Well, that's easy, because I also lead the customer service team too. I'll just have a meeting." And I said, "Just get them to tell stories. Tell stories of what they did to fix the customer problem, and tell it to the market research people." Yeah. And they had that meeting. And it went on 45 minutes longer than he called it, because the market research team were eating up the stories from customer service about the work that the customer service team did that made a difference to the customer.
Wow.
See, when the market research team thought they were working in a tunnel and it didn't matter to anybody, they didn't really care. They didn't understand how important their job was until they talked to people who actually talked to the people who bought the stuff. And that's when they could tell, my job means something. My market research team means something, because it helps the customer have a better customer experience. See, that's way leaders can find ways to connect people with how it matters. And so sometimes leaders have to be creative. They have to find a way to do that. And they have to find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, to connect the dots. I was thinking that, and then you said connect. And I thought, that meeting connected the dots for the research team so that they could see the full picture. We need that. We need each other. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's so important for companies to take your advice and to do these things, because if they don't go over into action, it's not going to happen.
It's so true. So true. And it just takes a decision. And it takes a little bit of time and creativity, what it takes. Yeah. And here's what we got to watch out for. And that is, there are some people that are resistant to the Kohler effect. Yeah. They, like I talked about before, they don't want to be included in the team. They don't want, or so they say. They don't want to be given a more important job. I'll tell you what, if you work in the corporate world very long at all, you're going to find some people who they try to promote that person doesn't want to be promoted.
Never heard of that. Wow.
They don't want that. They don't want the promotion. They don't want the promotion.
They just want to stay on that plateau. Yeah.
Well, they already feel pretty important on their job. And when they know they're going to go to a different job, they're not going to be able to produce that result anymore. And they're afraid of being down here with a load down on a task triangle lower. See, they're afraid to be moved into a job that doesn't matter. Give you a classic example.
Yes.
I got an oil field manager, and this oil field manager, he works at oil field completion, and he works with a team of roughnecks, and they go out to the oil field after the oil, they drill the well, and they set it up to do long-term production. And his guys love him. They love him. He works with about 20 guys, and they all would run through brick walls for him. And the company said, "You're such a good leader. We want to promote you into the corporate office, out of the field, into the corporate office. And instead of managing 20 people, you're going to manage 10 people that each manage 20.
Oh.
That's what we're going to do. Wow. And we're going to double your pay."
Yeah.
And he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go because he knew how valuable he was working in the field.
Yeah.
And he didn't have any idea. Nobody painted a picture for him on what the promotion would look like. Nobody took the time and said, well, if you do that, come visit. Come to the corporate office. Walk around with me for a week, and I'll show you some of the people you'll be working with. That wasn't, we just assume. Here's what leaders do, Juanita. They assume, since I know how valuable you would be if you got out of the field and came to corporate, that you must know. They don't know. They don't know. Yeah. You have to show them the picture, paint a picture for people. Yes. Because if we can't hire field leaders and make and promote them, we're not going to be able to grow. It's just, we need to take the leaders who show potential and promote them.
Absolutely, because they make more leaders. Now, this is so essential. How do companies go about discerning at what level each employee is at? How can they discern that? How can they place them?
Well, one thing you have to do is pay attention. Yes. You have to pay attention. This company was paying attention to this guy, and they could see and hear what his employees said about him.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do an assessment. We have an assessment you can do to measure the influence of somebody, but they didn't have to because they could see, because they were paying attention. There are so many companies that have, 30 or 40 leaders at some level, and they're not really paying attention to them. Everybody's worried about their own career instead of the 30 or 40 people's career. And they're not spending time with them. They're not investing in them.
Yes. And that is very sad, another sad thing. Because it's like the important things are being overlooked. The things that are really of essence is being overlooked. It's more like they focus on the short-term dividends that they get, on the short-term results that they get. And I think they should start looking into the long-term effect, because we mentioned now, look after those leaders, pay attention, paint the picture for them, and realize that if they feel safe to move up the ladder, that makes space for new leaders to come into place. Because really, if they continue this way, these leaders that are in place, that have all this potential, but that are scared to move up, they are going to a place of retirement at some point, and there will be no one to replace them because the shift didn't take place.
Exactly. Sometimes all you need to do is delegate a new job to somebody and not promote them.
Yeah. To
Okay.
see.
Now I'll tell you what. Everywhere I've ever been, there's always some need of a project that's sitting over in the corner, and it's not very urgent. So though we are not doing it, nobody's working on it. But if somebody did work on that project, it would make a big difference. And so all the leader has to do is, if they want to activate the Kohler effect, is identify those projects that are laying over, collecting dust in the corner. And they can say to one of their up and coming people, don't have to promote them. You don't have to promote them. Say, listen, I'd like you to start working on that project over there. And I would like you to look at it, do some research, get back to me, tell me what you would do. And I'm thinking about assigning you and giving you some assets to make that happen, because we kind of need that. Maybe first quarter of next year or the second quarter, I'd like to get the progress made on that. And you know what? That project might push that person way up the task triangle. It might push them way up to the top of the Kohler cone. And
absolutely,
every company has those things.
I'm sure I'm thinking now, as you are speaking about the corporate companies I've worked for, and there's always something, or if there's a new project and there's no one that's really having the time to put their full attention on it. Everybody's busy with their own thing. And I've seen that they give these projects to the young people coming in. And sometimes, the ideas that they come with when we are sitting on the board and they're bringing their presentations. I mean, if you give someone free reins and you tell them, take this project, my goodness, I've seen the most wonderful ideas transpire. So I agree with you. This is necessary. It's vital that we do it. And there are assessments. Now, I want to ask you, Bob, how often should these assessments be done? How often should this be revisited? Is it a yearly, annual thing? Or how does it work?
Well, I've worked with leaders at every single level. All from CEOs to $100 million, $1 billion companies, none bigger than that really, and to little mom and pop places. And you need to pick out each person that reports to you and have meetings with them on a regular basis. And I would recommend about once a month to start. Meet with people once a month. And talk to them about what's going on, what projects are you working on. And this is not a meeting where you're checking their work progress. It's really not that. Think about it as a coaching meeting. You're going to coach them, because the first time you do this, they're going to be afraid probably. If you're their boss and you ask them for a meeting and you haven't been meeting with them, they're gonna be really resistant. They're gonna think they're in trouble. They're gonna be defensive. But if you can tell them, listen, I'm not trying to call you out here or anything. What I'm trying to do is just to be a good leader here and find ways for you to be more successful. And then here's the thing, is to bring them into the social circle. Okay, find things you have in common with them. You like music? I like music. Your family plays, you guys have a family band? Wow, that is so cool. My brother has plays in a band. I mean, it's not a family band, but that's really interesting. You golf? No, I don't golf either. Well, okay. But find things they have in common with each other. State your intentions with people. Say, listen, my job as a leader is to help you succeed. That's kind of rare for leaders to say that. But do that. That brings people into that social circle, brings them closer. They start to feel like I'm one of them. I'm on the. He's with me. We're on the. We're like the same kind of person. We're the same kind of person.
Relatable, connecting.
Find things in common. Call out things you have in common. If you like boating and they like boating, that's great. you like knitting scarves and they like knitting scarves, talk about that a few minutes. Ask them about their knitting projects.
Yeah.
Because if you find things in common, that brings you into that social circle more. If you state your intentions, it brings you into the social circle more.
Yes.
Okay? So you can do that and find ways to raise them up the task triangle. You can have a 15-minute meeting with somebody after you build a rapport with them.
Yes.
And get a lot done in 15 minutes. You really can. At half an hour is plenty of time, usually, to activate the Kohler effect.
Absolutely.
And you know what? It lasts a long time. If you activate the Kohler effect with somebody, it could last months, years. And you just have to come by and massage it once a month.
Yes.
And remind people they're part of the team. Remind people they have an important job.
It's lovely that it's got a long-lasting effect because that's what we want. And it changes the morals of the people, the morale, I'll say, the morale. It uplifts them. It helps them to be excited, not to have these physical problems on a Sunday night, before work. We don't want that.
It makes them feel meaningful. It makes their life more meaningful. They go to sleep every night and they think, my life matters. My life matters. I do something 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week that matters. That's what people want.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I'm loving this conversation. And I can see that you have a true heart for leadership, which makes you perfect for the podcast. And I want to ask you, Bob, what is your favorite leadership quote? Who is it that you follow, or what really speaks to your heart?
Well, it sounds kind of silly, and I learned it long ago, and it's gotten me through a lot of things, but it's I think it's meaningful. And that is love many, trust few, always paddle your own canoe.
Oh, I love that.
I think that leadership requires you to love many. It requires you to care for people, a lot of people. But you got to be careful to not trust as many people as you love. You have to be careful with people that you're. Think about parents. They want their children to do well, and they ask them to do well, and they encourage them to do well, and their children make mistakes. And it doesn't matter. They keep loving them, and they make a mistake again. They love them some more. Whether they're learning to tie their shoes or learning to drive. My oldest son, when he started learning to drive at 16, I said, I don't think I would go out on this rainy night. Just got your license. And he said, I got my license. I want to go. And he went out and had a little fender bender. And I said, well, okay, well, that's one mistake. But, I had to, you got to be careful how you trust 16-year-old drivers.
Yes.
And then always paddle your own canoe, to me, means you've got to do the right thing, no matter everybody around you is doing the wrong thing. You got to be brave enough to do the right thing.
Yeah. Wow. It's the first time I've ever heard someone with that answer, and it's going to stay with me. Absolutely lovely answer. Thank you very, very much for enlightening us. I appreciate you. I want to ask you, Bob, do you have a role model that you just adore? Do you have a mentor? Who do you look up to?
Well, in the second chapter of this book, we talk about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt, President of the United States back at the turn of the century, because he was a leader, and he believed in people, and he activated the Kohler effect. And if you want to read just the second chapter of our book, you'll read about it.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you very, very much. And we are going to make the details available at the end of the session of how the audience can support your book, how they can connect with you and follow you. We're going to cheer you on. I mean, our time has flown by so quickly. I can't believe it. And we have 3 questions left. So I want to ask you, how can leaders hone their leadership skills? How can they come to a place where they kind of perfect it so that they can go to the next level? What is your advice there?
Keep reading.
Yeah.
Keep reading leadership books. That's key. Readers or leaders?
Beautiful.
Read our book. Yeah. Read.
Read. Readers are leaders. You heard it, audience? So there you go. You have homework. Never stop reading. Make sure you attain, and that new knowledge that you need so that you can stay on top of the new developments as well. It's so important to do research. The way we attempted leadership 10 years ago is not necessarily the way that we attempt leadership or go about it today, because people change, society changes. There's a quote for a reason that says change is the only constant. And as leaders, we have to be quick learners, and we have to be readers, and we have to be resourceful. And if we make sure that we stay up with the pace, we will make sure that we bring our best to the people that we lead. And I want to ask you, Bob, what is next for you? You have the book. You are busy with the Kohler's Cone. You are instructing companies. You are educating them. What's next for you? What can we support you with or cheer you on for?
Well, right now I'm just out there doing a lot of speaking, and I probably have another book in me, but it's probably going to be next year.
Good. Yeah, good choice, because we are almost at the end of October, So tell me, audience, if you have a public speaking event and you need a speaker, Bob is phenomenal at his public speaking. He really captivates the audience. He would be also a public speaker. He would be a lovely MC. There are so many events out there. Reach out to Bob. His details will be available, and contact him and, include him in your project and in your conferences. And then the final question, I can't believe we've arrived at the final question, but do you have any words of wisdom for the audience?
Well, I think never stop learning. Keep reading, never stop learning, and set big goals. Set big goals for yourself. That's really key. I think that everybody at every age, every place should figure out, look ahead 5 years, even if you're 82 years old. Look ahead 5 years. Yes. Imagine yourself successful. What would that look like?
Absolutely phenomenal advice. This session was just mind-blowing. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for what you're doing out there, bringing your knowledge and wisdom to us this evening. You just elevated us, and we are edified, and we appreciate you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Juanita. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure indeed. It's been such an honor. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, we will make all the details available. You know what to do, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.